Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time of day you may be clicking on the icon that you may have seen. Maybe you saw us on social media, maybe you saw this in an ad. However you may have found this platform today, greetings to you and welcome to the Firstborn Daughters podcast. My name is Shawana Ward. I am the author and curator behind this beautiful community that we have built. And before we jump into our episode today, I kind of want to give you guys some background on what Firstborn Daughters is, why it was created, and kind of what the vision and goal is from these episodes, from the community that we have created. And I have a very beautiful person that I want you guys to get very, very acquainted with, that I will introduce you to momentarily. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see her beautiful face up here already. But I'm going to save that best nugget for in a little bit. But coming back to Firstborn Daughters, it is a community that was created for Black women in general, but really any woman who carries the weight of their families on their shoulders. Firstborn daughters in particular have just this unsaid expectation to follow in the footsteps of the matriarch, the mother of the family. We all know that all of our families have their own traumas in their own ways, and normally without hesitation, the firstborn daughter steps up to the plate and kind of takes over where mom may not have had the skills, or grandma may not have had the skills, or auntie, whoever was that mother that kind of was holding everything together. It's like this expectation that the firstborn daughter continues that on, and at a very, very early age. So while we welcome all women, whether you're the firstborn daughter or the lastborn daughter, we emphasize firstborn because I think a little bit of that is passed down to all of us. And for very good reasons. Erin is going to talk a lot about matriarchy, and just really it's an honor to take on. But if we take it on through lenses of survival, it can be just very detrimental to our families in general as women. And so the Firstborn Daughters community was built for women who want to develop healthier women to women non-intimate relationships. And for women who may need a platform to express and start their healing by telling their stories. That's one of the most underrated ways of healing through experience, unlearning and releasing and transmuting is through writing and through your voice, through speaking. And so Firstborn Daughters, I created a platform that you can not only take from listening to these podcasts, but you have opportunity to submit your own firstborn daughter story to be published, and many, many other things. We have weekly community meetups that will begin towards the end of the spring. There is an online program and mentorship opportunity that you can also indulge in as well. And we'll get to all of those things down the line. But for now, I think this is a good gist of what you guys need to know for Firstborn Daughters. And on this call with me, on this episode, and will be on many, many more, I want to introduce you guys to the lovely, beautiful lady. Her name is Erin Wiley. And Erin Wiley is actually a journaling coach. Her business is Erin Wiley Writes. And she is also an honor here today as a firstborn daughter advocate and contributor. And so you will hear her voice quite often throughout podcast episodes. She'll be leading a journaling circle once a month for our Firstborn Daughters community. So get acquainted with Erin. I'm going to let her just give you some insight on her business and her brand.
Thanks, Shawana. I am so glad to be here. This is incredibly exciting. Like you said, my name is Erin Wiley. I am a poet and author, and journaling coach is kind of a new identity I've claimed for myself through my brand, Erin Wiley Writes. My mission is really to use writing as an instrument for spreading more love and more peace and more healing in the world. And so getting an opportunity to be in community with you and other women who are sharing similar circumstances and are looking for ways to heal and to grow and to expand and to support each other. I'm really excited about that because I think writing is a powerful tool that can be used for that purpose. So I'm thrilled to be supporting the community in that way with the writing circles and some of the things that we'll be doing. So with my journaling coaching, I just work with people one-on-one. If they want to write, if they want to use writing but don't know where to get started, that's where I come in. I get to help them kind of develop their own practice that suits them best. I do workshops about journaling. So all the things, all the ways that people can use writing for mental health and expansion and self-love. That's what I'm about these days. So I'm excited to be participating and be part of the Firstborn Daughters community. I am part of that group anyway. So I'm just glad for the opportunity and glad to be on with you today.
Oh, we're gonna share some tears in here, Mike, today, y'all. Go ahead.
I didn't bring the
tissue. Right. But as you guys can see and just hear, just in her passion behind what she does and why she does it, why she's here. One of the reasons why I feel like Erin and I gravitated towards each other so naturally, to give background, we met at a retreat that myself and one of my business partners, Mahari, put together. I think was it last year? Mm-hmm. It was the last year in Baltimore, and that was one of the most beautiful experiences I think I've experienced to date. And a lot of us have so many of the same gifts and talents and just passions and desires, and the authenticity of her heart and how she feels for others. Like, you can tell when somebody really uses their gifts to empower and uplift others. Of course, our gifts help heal ourselves, but I think we realized that later down. Oh, wow. We realized that later.
Surprise!
Wow. So you guys, I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, but like fireworks just went off. Crazy. I don't even know if it was possible, but so I'm telling the truth. Erin is just like this beam of love and light, and that is the energy that we need when we're creating spaces where, one, we're going to talk about some things that may make us uncomfortable. We're going to talk about some things that are going to allow us to stretch as human beings so that we can really show up as our fullest and highest selves. We're going to be very authentic, and I was blessed to run into Erin because she has that heart. She's just naturally that person, and so I am elated. I've been trying to contain my excitement today, but this is going to be a great season that continues to grow. And so, yeah, we're going to hop right into the vibe of episode 1. And do you wanna say what our theme is today, Erin?
Today we are really getting into debunking the hero syndrome, which is also known as the eldest daughter syndrome. So we want to talk a little bit about what that means, how it relates to us, and how it might relate to you, those of you that are listening or watching on YouTube, and really start talking a little bit about what are the components of that? What makes it up? What are the things that we recognize and all see, showing up in our daily lives or remember growing up, and how those things manifest in our lives today? And then what we can do to kind of find a healthy way to incorporate that into the things we want to do going forward and whatever healing we need. So this is just getting started with the meat of, what this means and what how it translates into the lives that we're living.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. So guys, debunking hero syndrome. What is hero syndrome? We're going to kind of break that down a little bit. So often you guys hear of us being rescuers. And then a lot of times that stems from not being rescued. A lot of us firstborn daughters have undergone some pretty serious childhood trauma, or maybe not trauma in a physical aspect, but mentally, because of just things passed down generationally. But there's always like that one person in the family that tries to kind of like break that stigma, that generational curse breaker. And so sometimes it's not always the smoothest or the easiest, because we take on the hero syndrome, and that is the need to rescue because we were not rescued. And so that starts with family. It starts with, if you have siblings, I need to protect my siblings. I need to make sure that I stand in the gap for whatever space my mother figure or my mother was not able to show up as. And then that trickles into our work life. We're overextending, overdoing, constantly hyperfixated on, being the best or having the best quality, or being the person that is we don't start controversy. Like, we're the peacemakers, and it just creates this very, very unrealistic version of who a Black woman is supposed to show up as. And so if you're anything like Erin and myself, you start having children, you find a partner, and we think that have been doing all the right things to flow into life, just to find that there's so much we have to unlearn. There's so much we have to undo, and there's so much love and grace that we never filled ourselves with because we were so busy thinking that our job was to pour into everybody else. And the one thing that mindfulness and wellness, if you guys have been following me previous to this platform, you guys know that I'm a meditation specialist and a wellness practitioner outside of that. One of the things that has really helped me realize is that I am no good to anybody if I'm not giving myself the same energy. Not the little bit of energy I got left after I've done everything, but it makes it easier for me to be the citizen that I want to be when I'm being that citizen to myself. And so that's why you're going to always hear us say self-care is not selfish. Like, if anything, it helps you naturally be the things that we're striving to be every day. That in a nutshell is the hero syndrome, and we thought it very important to shine light on that in this platform, because we have to kind of debunk that mindset. We have to really walk into what healthy boundaries and healthy ways of showing up for the people in our lives and ourselves is, unpacking that trauma, and also releasing that notion that kind of also attaches itself to you, that you're not good enough unless, and I put ... after unless, because that could be anything. Unless I'm constantly showing up for the person in my family who self-sabotages, is constantly being the one to rescue. I'm not good enough unless at work I'm hearing this type of validation. There's always a stigma on if I'm enough. Am I lovable? And from there, Erin, I'm curious, do you have any personal experiences that you can expound on where you felt like you weren't good enough, and so you found yourself constantly trying to show up and show that validation or receive that validation? Do you have a moment that maybe you don't mind sharing with our audience? And I'll go after where you felt like it was absolutely your job to be the hero in that situation. What unrealistic expectations do you feel like you've had to unlearn?
It's interesting because I almost can't even identify like a specific instance. It's almost like my entire makeup is shaped that way, where, and I come from a very incredibly supportive family, supportive, loving. Like, I never got the sense that my family didn't make me feel like I wasn't good enough unless, those types of things. So I'm blessed in that way. But I do still feel like I put some of that on myself sometimes. Like, even though I was supported and loved, there was still something about me that wanted to always be the safe one, always be the careful one, always be the non-troublemaker one. And part of that, I think, might be personality, but I can just see this undertone of when you were talking earlier about being the peacemaker, not stirring up trouble. And what I've realized in my journey into kind of becoming more mindful and understanding a little bit more about self-care is recognizing that things that were not controversial, just me speaking my opinion without reservation, or dreaming about things or setting big goals, those aren't like boat rocking things, but they still felt unsafe. So the ability to even shape that mindset still comes very alien to me, because I'm used to just stay the line, just keep it simple, just be peaceful, just be level, don't make a lot of noise, don't do anything too flashy, don't do anything too bad. It's just like this undertone of averageness that I carried a lot throughout my childhood. And it wasn't really until, honestly, my husband was the one that was kind of like, why do you think you're average? Like, what does that even mean? And just having people around me that really started seeing more of me and expressing that to me. Like, because again, nobody bashed me. I was fine. I was good. I was quiet. I was the one that didn't rock any boats, so it was good. But it wasn't until people started pouring more on top of that, they started sprinkling a little bit more sugar on that. Like, well, yes, you're good, but you're actually great. You're actually exceptional. You're actually special. And this is why. And kind of stepping into that has been a journey. And I think one of the things that doing this in community makes so powerful is recognizing that it's a journey and it's not going to be one day. even though we all feel the exact same way, we're not going to have the same pathway to healing.
Yeah.
And I think the joy of being in a community safe space like this it's unparalleled. Like there's no way to really measure how valuable that is. So I'm excited to be doing some of this healing myself and to be, alongside you and others, because I think it's so important for us to support each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know at my part-time that I do working from home, they do your first year, these quarterly check-ins. And they, a lot of it is them wanting you to kind of evaluate yourself, which I think is very powerful. Like, how you see yourself different from the past 3 months when we came into contact with each other. And that's one of the things that I've taken away from the last couple of places that I felt like I worked for. A part of the Firstborn Daughters community is that we quarterly check in with each other, as well as accountability. Like, how have you been nurturing yourself, sis? Have you been paying attention to yourself over the past 3 months? What progress have you made? How can you give yourself your kudos? Where do you see your growth? And then even allowing your sisters to empower you and how they've seen you grow. I think that is so important. How do we flow out of the hero syndrome into balance? I think a lot of that has to do with understanding our next point, which is the timeline of the matriarch. And so I'm going to kind of let Erin guide us into matriarchy, what it is, and how it kind of correlates with like this firstborn daughter syndrome.
Yeah. So when we first started talking about this, the word matriarch resonated very heavily with me. And, I mentioned earlier that I come from a very incredibly supportive family. And in that family, I am blessed to be one among a line of very strong, intelligent, beautiful women. There are women after women after women and men, not to say that there aren't men in my family, but the women in my family, there's a deep rooted sense of strength and intelligence and good-heartedness that I'm grateful to be a part of and have been raised among. But I think, like you said, most families, there is that one person. There's a big mama, there's an auntie, there's a grandma, there's a somebody, that person that their house is always home. For every holiday, for every whatever, like their house was the one that you went to. And what I've seen, over the course of the years is that, that matriarch was originally of my grandparents' generation. And when she passed, it's like, okay, there were several women that were kind of the next generation. And it's like, okay, they all have the tendencies, but there's always that one that has the house. And that house is the one that everybody gravitates to. And in my case, it happens to be my mom. So it's like my mom often feels like the next matriarch of the family, even though she and her cousins are very close, and they also share a lot of responsibility and a lot of that spirit of matriarchy for the whole family. Then you come down to my generation, and there are several, again, female cousins that are the same generation. And we've kind of had conversations about, our parents are getting older. They're moving into the next stage of life to the point where, we're going to have to start caretaking and caregiving for them. Are we ready for this? Like, who's next? Who's going to step into and be that next person that becomes the matriarch of the family? And there's this pressure. Like for me, I say all the time, like, I'm not really all that domestic. Like, I'm not the cooker in my household. But praise Lord for my husband, because he is the one that does the cooking. But it's like, well, I can't be a matriarch if I can't cook. Like, I mean, there's just all of these thoughts. Like, my house can't be the one. It's not that big. It doesn't have all of these fancy, you know what I mean? You just get into this mindset where what you saw as so nurturing and wonderful and warm for you, you feel a responsibility to be able to provide that to the people you love and care about. And therefore you compare your way of being to those that you came after. And if you start getting into this situation where it doesn't measure up, that's when you get into the negative self-talk and the expectations and all of those pieces that we start inflicting upon ourselves. So for me, that matriarch timeline and identification of, well, which one of us is going to be the matriarch of this generation. It's a weird place to be in. And I've had similar conversations with my cousins, and we're all looking at each other the same way. Like, does it have to be one of us? Like, do we have to pick one? Like, can we bond together and figure some things out? So it's an interesting dynamic that I think, it's unavoidable, because as your elders pass on, there's always generational things that come up. But when you start getting closer to being the oldest generation, the pressures are a little different, I think.
Idealistically, I think that would be beautiful. Like, we're all going to split the shared responsibility. And I've seen in movies, and I can't say just in movies, I've heard that there are families that are able to do it. So I wanted to ask you, do you think, I don't know, I feel like there's still always that one, though, that just kind of inevitably kind of just takes on, like, whatever, like, the leftover is. It's always some trickle. There's always some trickle. So do you think, in the way that time is shifting, the way that we're redefining what families look like in America, there's so many changes. Do you think that there's room to even explore that? How does this become balanced?
I think
at all.
I think a lot of it depends on the specific family and relationships. Like, I'm blessed to be very close to all of my female cousins. Like, we're really more like sisters. So we have a dynamic that would make something like that possible, I think, but everybody doesn't have that. So I think the possibilities really depend on the nature of your family. And I think if you don't have that dynamic, it almost feels like, I can't think of the right word. It's like if everybody else taps out, who's the last person to tap out?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if everybody else is like, I'm not doing it, who didn't say it fast enough, and therefore they're the one left holding the bag? I think that's what we get into. And then you get into those messy things. You see it a lot, I think, when, like, people pass, and you hear about how sometimes families just go not good trying to resolve things. Yeah.
Literally my family. So I love this dynamic, because I feel like we're going to be able to feed each other, because Erin can help me give advice as somebody who has an environment where it could potentially be cultivated to where it's not existent on my side. And the matriarch of my family was my grandmother. She just passed year before last. And that happened. Family just kind of, it was already like literally on the ends of the branches. And once she passed, it was like that peacemaker. I said at her funeral, I think we're all really going to took for granted, and are going to realize how much the power of her prayers really kept us individually and collectively. And it definitely was felt. So, I don't know if we'll have time to dive into it this episode, but I really want to give some resources, or even just some insight to the daughters who may not necessarily have the support they need in their direct family. There are ways to still fulfill that need to have your family gather, or whatever it may be, without overextending yourself and without it being an emotionally tumultuous thing on you. I feel like when I say freshly, I mean that, like, toes still wet, freshly walking into what this looks like. And that has been because I've been in therapy since 2019, really 2018, but with my therapist right now since 2020. And so again, I'm emphasizing 2020 because those sessions leading up to now had to occur before I could get to where I was. But being connected with beautiful women like Erin has helped me understand matriarchy is a beautiful thing, though, when you're healthy to take on the role. And again, when I say the role, nobody get freaked out that it's that unrealistic role that we seen since we were whatever. Though there's a whole healthy way to show up in that way, and even start new traditions. I feel like.
Do you feel like, if I can ask, like when you were going through the situation with your grandmother passing, like how was that for you? Like, where were you in that, like, I don't want to call it the line, but like, where did you fall as far as generations, and like, how did you move through that?
So before I divorced, when I was married, I was still heavy trying to like keep everybody together. But again, my family comes from very like just the conditions we grew up in very much so affected our mindsets and the way that we function. So it was very toxic while I was doing that. So it's different when the people that you're pulling together are in healthy spaces too. And so I kind of completely just stopped when it got to the point where not only was I burnt out from trying to keep my family together, my family was falling apart because it was built off of whatever thoughts I had in my head coming out of that my immediate family situation. So at this point in my life, I had completely said, I cannot be any good to anybody. I need to figure me out. I was divorced, had been divorced for about 3 years, living in Richmond. I had just really started grounding myself in my mindfulness and my teachings as far as yoga, my meditation, all the things. And I was at a part where I was shifting again. I had left my 9 to 5. I was completely working for myself. And she got sick. And so while I feel like I had done repairing of me and my child's relationship, I wasn't thinking about my family around me at all for me. Like, it was like all about me. I can't help them. I've tried. I'm gonna help who I can help. Not even, and that wasn't my motivation, but it was a part of me and I didn't realize it. So coming back to that, I was the only person available to care for her when she got sick. So I moved from Richmond. I came back to the 757 and she passed the next day. She passed the next day. When my dad asked me, it was natural, and I was like, I have to do it. I feel like I'm supposed to do it. Regardless to it meant me completely dropping what I was supposed to do in Richmond, because I had my own stuff going on up there. It was like, who else? And it was so crazy because months before, God asked me, I was praying one time in meditation, and he was like, if time and money wasn't a factor, what would you do? And I said, spend more time with my grandma.
Wow.
And it literally just like that. She waited for me to come home. I came home. It was the most beautiful Sunday. All of her kids came that were in the area. We had dinner, and she passed. If you are gonna pass, that's the way that you pass. But I actually helped her pass through. Like, I was with her by her bedside, and it felt energetically like she transferred something to me. And from that moment, I've been joking with my dad and telling him that she jumped in my body, because that part of me very much so woke up again. And before I not the thumbs down, Zoom shady.
Zoom
being really shady.
How do you cut that off, Zoom?
I don't even know what it is, y'all.
That hurt my feelings.
Like, but the lessons, I was living with my dad up until I moved into my space I'm in now, and it was okay. Yes, you understand the role you play in your family's lives, but are you going to keep showing up in an unhealthy way? So it was like, enforce those boundaries. You cannot overdo. You don't have it to help them do this. I tried to launch this community 1.5 years ago, before I moved to Richmond, and it wasn't time. It was time now. And again, no coincidence that I connected with, a soul such as yourself, because it is that balance. It's like, you know what I mean? So I'm excited for our listeners. I'm excited for the ones that are coming from maybe a background that may be similar to mine, and for the ones that are coming from a background that's similar to Erin, as we all just pour and feed into each other. I'm excited now that I'm in a more grounded space spiritually of like what matriarchy looks for me, because I see how it's like creating miracles in my like direct relationship, like with my son, and in my own personal life, because it's coming from a healthy place now. So
I think the healthy part, there's still a lot of things that I have to learn. And I think one of the reasons I gravitate to you is because you just give off this vibe of whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to do it in a healthy way. And I think that is something that many of us aspire to. And, you know, we have all of the good intentions and right ideas, but the implementation, like I told you, like I was like, I reached out to you because you're living the life that I want to live. Like I can see you walking in your gift and your purpose of pouring into people and doing it in a healthy way. And I'm like, that's what I'm after. So I think it's awesome for us to be able to connect and pour into each other and pour into others. Because I agree. I think we are very like-minded and like-spirited in that way. So this is gonna be fun. It's already fun.
I must say it's so juicy already. I'm like, gosh. But guys, we, you know, I think we got pretty in depth for episode 1. We want, I know I'll speak for myself and I'll let Erin speak. You know, we want for you guys to feel like those things that we kind of don't normally talk about in groups because it could be taboo, or maybe we're just not as comfortable like expressing certain things because we don't have that environment, or it's never been said in our support groups. Like, this platform is where we want you guys to feel free to express that. And I also wanted to know if you are somebody who's listened and said, man, like I really resonated with like either of these stories. I really feel like I've experienced these things. I'm in a place in life where I'm unlearning, and maybe I do want to share a story, but maybe it's heavy in detail about different things. You can definitely submit your story anonymously. And definitely we'll have something as well if an episode or a topic maybe you guys want to chime in on, that'd definitely be an option too. But we definitely want you guys to feel that this is like really a safe space to show up authentically, as you've heard both of us do today. So
yeah, and I think there's so much power in knowing that you're not alone. And you're not the only person that's been through that or feels that way or has those thoughts. And I think something like this, where especially like you said, with us coming from different perspectives, and there's a spectrum, you know, between even what we've experienced. But I think if each person in the community can find themselves on the spectrum, I think it opens up the opportunity for them to really build and be part of and really draw from the community. And I think we will be growing together, learning a lot together. I will definitely be bringing my tissues for next time, because you almost got me. You almost got me this time. But yeah, I think this is such a necessary thing for the times that we're in, and for the people that we're becoming, and for the world that we want to create. And I'm thrilled to be a part of it, because I think it's necessary work, and all of the people that are out there doing things that are trying to add more love and more healing into the world. I think we're all in this together, and I'm just excited about being part of it with you.
Ashe, Erin. Ashe, you said it.
Ashe.
My sentiments exactly. And so guys, to get connected with us, you can follow us for now on Facebook and Instagram at Firstborn Daughters. No underscores, no funny symbols, just Firstborn Daughters. There's a link in the bio that'll take you to the Facebook group. There's a link in the bio that will take you to a form where you could submit your info if you're interested in submitting your story. And we'll have some more things to release to you guys at a later time. But for now, my name is Shawana.
I'm Erin.
And it has been a pleasure to have you guys join us in community today. Until next episode, have a wonderful, beautiful day that you deserve.
Blessings, friends.
Bye.